Hey everybody, welcome back to another critique session. First off, we've got a reel from Lilycorn on the Discord. We can watch it through, but I think this is amazing work. All of these, I think, work really, really well. I have a couple suggestions about some of them, and then also maybe the presentation of them. You did mention that you were putting together a show reel, which I think these are amazing pieces to have in a show reel. They're really, really stunning. I think, there's some things I might change. I'm not sure if you're trying to present this as your full show reel, or if this is just an idea for a part of it. But yeah, so let's talk about just some small lighting things for me that I might look at changing. I think across all of them, there's something weird going on with these glasses back here. There's like some crazy ambient occlusion or something down here where I wouldn't expect the glasses to cast these kinds of shadows. This one looks like it feels like it should be refracting the countertop. So I would take a look at that just because you have such beautiful character lighting. I think you just want to minimize any chance that someone's going to be distracted by something else. But in terms of the character lighting, I think it's amazing. I think your shaping is really good. I think the character looks great. The only little thing that I was looking at, besides these, was looking at the eyes, right? I think they're a little bit blown out, especially this screen left eye and the screen left portion of the screen right eye. I think taking that down would help a lot because it feels, everything else looks so polished. I think it's just the eye whites that feel, maybe a little bit too crazy. So I took them down and shaped them just a little bit. And then another thing I think all viewers could benefit from is an eye spec. Maybe this is the Disney artist talking, but I think in live action and everything, everyone loves a catch light in the eye. It just brings a lot more life to the character. So I think this would help you a lot. You can really see the difference, even though it's so small. To me, it feels like there's a little bit more life there. And one last thing I'm just noticing now, it feels like something is a little funky with the way the rim is kind of catching on the top of the hair. It feels a little fuzzy, like I don't know. I feel like hair would have a little bit of a sharper rim and a sharper speck here. It feels a little bit blurry, so maybe you can look into that to see. But as an overall image, I think it's not a huge deal. I think it works really, really well. There's a little bit of a pop there in her pants, I noticed. Kind of makes me wonder what went on with the texture there. But not a huge deal. I'll talk about this presentation in a bit as we go through the rest. This one's really cool. Again, I think eye white's blowing out. She's looking a little bit not only on the key side, but I think her eye whites are a little bit bright in general. It's making her look a little bit like they're glowing slightly. So I think taming those down a little bit would be nice, and then again the eye spec would help. You can even see in all of these your eye white is so white. It's really looking, especially this one, a little demonic. So just toning that down a little bit would help. But again, overall lighting looks amazing. I love this one. I love the lighting under the bar here. Again, eye whites just a little bit too bright, and a catch light in the eye would be nice. But, I really love the way that you're lighting her skin. I think it feels really true to the skin tone. And you've really like shaped it with a specular, which is really, really impressive. So I love that. The eye whites here, maybe a little bit still bright, but not as bad. Yeah, again, these little cups in the background, maybe see what you can do to fix them. And this one also, let me go back. I love the dappled lighting you're getting here. I think it works really well on her body and her face at the beginning, but when she lifts her head, she lifts it into this like kind of slightly awkward shape, weird shape on her forehead that's a little bit distracting. We're looking here, but it's like a very strong shape on her face. I might just see what you can do to clear that out. I think we'll still feel the dapple on her if you don't have this shape on her face there. Yeah, like I love feeling it, like here when she moves her head, feeling it kind of her move out of that shadow, but it's just this one in particular that's feeling a little bit strange. The presentation in general, I think, again, it depends on how you're putting together your reel. If this is the reel, I think maybe it's a little bit too long on this one scenario. This one piece. Well, it's 4 pieces, but it's the same animation and model and everything. I think 50 seconds is a little bit long for that. Especially if you're going to put it in another show with other pieces in the reel. Everyone has a different opinion on reels. I think personally what I would do is, let's see, I might, you could play around with this. I might show all 4 back to back. Just the actual animation, all 4 back to back, and then go to this layout where you have all 4, and then go through all the key background, what were they? Key fill, background, rim, on all 4 of these at the same time, if that makes sense. So you would have this layout of 4, and then each one, so there would be like key, and then they would all be the key light, and then rim, and they'll all be the rim light, all in this 4 panel view. I think that will cut down on time quite a bit, and then you can fit in other things in there. And I don't think those wipes, like the different emission, I don't think it needs to be very long. I think you can kind of like wipe pretty quickly, because if they want to see it, they'll just pause. But yeah, I think the work here is really stunning. I love, this is like a desktop background or something. It looks really good altogether, and you've chosen really nice lighting scenarios. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. I think you're in a really good spot. This is my favorite one, actually. But they're all great. So yeah, just take those into consideration. Depends on what else you're doing with the rest of the pieces in your reel, but I think really just keep it short, let the work speak for itself. Great. Cool, so we have a couple more submissions. This one is from Erica. So we saw this, another iteration of this last review. Amazing work. I think you turned that around super, super quick. I really like the adjustments you did. I think it's feeling really cinematic and focused. My eye goes here almost right away. I think maybe I had a couple suggestions. You talked about trying to render out a full frame range with a camera movement, I think that's perfect. I think, if you want to, if you're aiming to put this on a reel, for CG stuff, I feel like you should always have a camera movement if you can, just because if it's still, you can do crazy stuff to it. You can Photoshop it like I'm doing now. If you have a moving camera, it shows them that you're able to do things that hold up when the camera moves. So we can go through some of the things that I did. Just need to remind myself also. Yeah, so this one, I think the books were just catching my eye still just a little bit too much. So I brought down how white they were. I feel like, maybe it's a material change. You can just like dim down the whiteness. White stuff, white materials, it's always difficult to deal with. So yeah, maybe bring that down a little bit just so we're not distracted. It's not a huge amount. You still want to make the materials feel true, but might help a little bit. Let's see, what was this? Okay, this one's super subtle. I hope you can see it over the recording, but it felt like your shadows overall were a little bit like slightly lacking color, a little bit gray, not literally gray, but it feels a little bit monotone with the warm light. The shadows don't have much color in them. I think you can utilize the fact that you have these windows open and get a little bit more color into those shadows. Hopefully you can see this. I just like put a tiny bit of blue in the shadows, and I think it really helps, like especially on this part of this cardboard box. Like it makes it feel like blue, environment light is spilling in from maybe there's another window off screen or something. I think that might help without disrupting the value read of everything, because I think your value read is working really well. You can see if I turn this on and off, like it gets a little bit brighter, but it's not really affecting anything. So maybe look into that. This cherry I've been looking at since the first iteration. It looks like it looks delicious. It looks really like luminous, but I can't stop looking at it, which might be an issue. So maybe turning down the translucency on it, whether it's in comp or whatever, would just help us not be so distracted by it. If it looked like that, I feel like I wouldn't be reading the paper. I would be eating that piece of cake. So let's see. Yeah. The last thing, I think, maybe something you can do in comp. You mentioned trying to take this into Nuke. I think it could benefit from a little bit of more contrast overall. It's an overall contrast adjustment is a little bit difficult to get once your lighting is this far along. It can be done, but I think the easier, maybe smarter, more time efficient way would be just adding a little bit of contrast in comp. Overall, you can see when I bump up the contrast, what it does to the image. It really focuses it on the bright parts and kind of lets the darks sit back. Maybe it's going too far on this. You're losing detail, but hopefully you understand what I mean. If I turn it to black and white, you can see, it's just, you have this, and when you turn it off, it looks a little hazy. So I feel like you could benefit from a little bit of that. But yeah, this is the before and after. It's not much, really tiny little changes, nitpicky stuff. I think you've done an amazing job with this image, and the turnaround is super quick. So great job on that. I'm just noticing one little stupid thing. This rim light on this pot, maybe get rid of that. it's so when the rim lights are so thin like this, it tends to look a little bit like a matte line sometimes, and also maybe it's sticking out because the color temperature of this rim doesn't feel quite the same as what's on the outside. I think if you just lose that or dim it down quite a bit, it's just so close to the focal point. So just take that down. Yeah, because, now I can't unsee it. Like if you look at it, I think it kind of just looks like maybe someone drew on this with a marker straight down here. So I think get rid of that. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Cool. Awesome job. I think you've really, really, really improved this quite a bit and so super quickly. So great job. Keep it up. I'm looking forward to seeing the animated version if you can get to that. Cool. So this is Tanya. This is a comp assignment, which is you asked if it's okay. Totally good to talk about comp here. This is the lighting pass that you did, and then you have the comp pass layered on top. I think you're adding quite a bit to this. I like I like a lot of what you're doing here. I think the vignette's nice. I think a lot of the atmosphere stuff is nice. I think maybe you're cranking depth of field a little bit too far. I'm not sure. And maybe you have to render a little bit higher quality. Some of the stuff looks like, I can't tell if it's in focus or not, because like the shoelace is in focus, and then the edge of the shoe, you're getting edge artifacts or like blurriness around the edge. You might want to look into that. It feels like, something about the depth of field is off, or the way that it's being layered is off. You see what I mean? Like, obviously this has no depth of field, so it's super crisp, but, if you look at this character's legs, I think it's supposed to be in focus, but the edges are out of focus. So it just feels a little bit, I don't know, hard to see, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I can't really focus on what's going on here, but I think the idea with the depth of focus that you have here is right. I think it's just trying to understand what causes those artifacts. And I think a lot of people's tendency is to go really shallow depth of field. I don't think that's necessary 100% on this one. I think maybe if the amount of depth of field, how little you have, is causing these blurry edges, maybe you can come up on that f-stop number just a little bit, just to make it feel a little bit more natural. And the other thing I think is the amount of atmosphere that you're adding. It feels a little bit hazy compared to the original. I like... actually, let me say that a different way. I like how much haze you have on these background characters, but I wish that these foreground, or I guess midground characters, retained more of that contrast. So I think, pushing back this atmosphere that you have and retaining more contrast, from them forward might help make the image a little bit more punchy. But yeah, keep going. I think a lot of the adjustments you made are really nice. I think it's just trying to troubleshoot like what's going on with this focus plane and stuff like that. But yeah, great job. And this last one's from Mustafa. Really quick turnaround again, which is awesome. And I think your changes are really good. I think this is the original that you submitted earlier this week, and this is the updated version. The rim is looking nice on his head. Yeah, I think the improvements are really, really good. I did have... So you mentioned a couple things that you're still working on. One of them being the spec on the pipes, and then also some of the fill here, I believe you mentioned. So let me just go through a couple things that I thought maybe could help a little bit more. I think the read of this is pretty good now. It's a lot better than before, where you know he was kind of floating in space a little bit. I think you are missing some contrast around what I would think is the focal point, which is the face. But yeah, let me just go through some of these edits, these paint over stuff. So I think these bright spots being so close to the edge of the frame, having three of them like this, I think maybe this one especially I think is a little bit too bright. I would probably take those down. Maybe that's a little too much, but you get what I mean. Just so your eye doesn't like, oh, what's that? Travel all the way up there. I think you could still kind of localize the spread of this a little bit more. For here, I just strengthened it closer to the bulb. It feels still a little bit even to me, the way it's falling off. I think localizing it there, and I think you could back off on the volume, on the amount that's hitting the volume just a little bit more. It's much better than before. It feels a lot more natural. I think it's just, getting a little bit more contrast, because it's tricky, you're washing out what is the focal point of the image, but yeah, here, I actually did that. Okay, so just taking it down just a little bit more so we can, it doesn't wash over him, this character quite so much. These wall sconces you added, I'm not sure if they're doing anything for me personally. I think they're just more points to look at, and it feels a little bit distracting for some reason that they're right below these windows. Sorry, that's my cat yelling. So I got rid of them in the paint over. I could be convinced, if you love them. But I think maybe they're a little bright and distracting. So just to focus the image a little bit more, I got rid of them. I think once you kind of get these pipes sorted, and if this volume comes down a little bit, there will be some detail back there. I don't need to see exactly what's going on back there, but I think it's fine without these wall sconces. And yeah, so from here on out, just looking at how can we focus this image to have the maximum sort of punch, and draw our eye immediately to where we want to go and to tell the story here. So I think a vignette, these tentacles out here, these hits are quite bright. They're almost competing with how bright he is, because he is not as contrasty because he's being washed out by this volume. So I think getting a vignette on those will really help center the focal point a little bit. You can see, it's a little easier to see in black and white, but just doesn't need to be this much, maybe. But just knocking that down will really help us look here immediately. Oh yeah, I love this rim that you have here. I kind of wish I could see a little bit more influence on the tentacles, or even maybe some of these poker chips, whatever is natural. But I just add a little bit of rim. I think might help the character sit a little bit better in this environment. What did I do here? I think I added, not sure. All right, let's move on. Yeah, here's the big one. So I think, kind of like in Erica's image, I think you have this nice combination of colors, right? Like you have this orangey, peachy sort of lamp, and then you have these nice cool blue windows. that supposedly probably go around, off camera. I think it's a good opportunity to sort of bring some coolness into the shadows here. And I think it'll also help with like, the underwater feel of it. But you can see, this is a paint over, so I'm painting over the spots that are getting hit with light as well, which you probably wouldn't want to do. But it's more about, these darker areas that aren't being hit by a lot of this warm light. Just having them go cool, I think, would help really give a little bit more richness to the image. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. You can ask me about this if it's not super clear, but because I know it's hard to see on the recording, but getting a little hint of that blue light coming from off screen, I think would really make it feel richer. Okay, yeah. So again, trying to figure out how to focus the eye a little bit more. The backs of these cards are really bright, almost I think brighter than this character is. So just knocking those down, just so we look at him or them. I think, there's nothing. I don't think these cards are a story point, so it doesn't need to be super bright like that. And then the last thing was just, kind of hammering home the point of like, you can benefit from a little bit more contrast. So brightening up his face, maybe the darks can go a little bit darker and blue. I think you can see how much punch that gives. The image isn't holding up here, which is why he looks like he has eczema or something. But, I think you understand the point. Like, to have his face be the brightest point, I think will be pretty important for how this image is composed. So this is, before and after the contrast. And you can see how, like, at least to me, my eye goes straight here now. And I'm really absorbed in the story without, hurting any of the reads of the secondary reads of anything else in the frame. And yeah, this is black and white before and after your version. So, I think your structure is there. I think it's just, really starting to hone in on how can you make this image pop, and how can you make it, how can you make the audience really focus on what's important here. But awesome job. I think, the way that you tackled the original notes, I think, is really great. I have no doubts that you can tackle these additional notes in a great way. So awesome job. Thanks, everybody.